Well, economists say tax is the key to development. It's widely accepted that improving the effectiveness and transparency of tax administration systems in Africa is critical to achieving the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. Here to talk more about taxation in Africa is Aimée Dushime, Chartered Certified Accountant at KPMG East Africa. She's also a Mandela Washington Fellow. Ms. Dushime, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Vincent.
So first, you're a young lady, very passionate, though, about the issue of taxation and kind of breaking it down for the citizens, not only of Rwanda, but across Africa. Why? Why?
The reason as to why I'm passionate about taxation, it's because I think it's something inevitable. Someone once said that apart from death, the only other certain thing are taxes. So taxes are part of our lives.
Mm-hmm. But when you look at the landscape in Africa, you can begin from Rwanda. What do you get in terms of the level of knowledge people have about their taxes and why they pay those taxes?
Sadly, I would say that taxes are it's something that it's a subject that's often ignored by people. People actually do not know why they pay taxes and what their taxes are used for. And it's quite unfortunate because when you look at the development of the country, especially in African countries, most development, the money that is used comes from taxes. So that's why I think it's essential for everyone to know about taxes.
You said there's a knowledge gap between the policymakers and those who pay taxes.
Precisely.
What kind of knowledge is that, and what needs to be done to bridge that gap?
So first of all, for example, if a new tax law has been passed by the government or maybe the Rwanda Revenue Authority and any other revenue authorities in Africa, most people are not aware of it. For instance, a startup or a small medium enterprise, they'll often realize that a certain law was passed only when they've been told they need to pay penalties because they were not compliant with that particular tax. So I think more tax education can be done on the side of the revenue authorities, and more people can also be, let's say, more inquisitive to find out why they pay taxes and what taxes have been passed.
In fact, in the same line, along those lines of knowing more, how about the whole question of knowing how that money is being spent? Because for those who have an idea, they say most of the times politicians are actually using government funds as if they were some kind of personal investment or some personal allowances from somewhere.
You realize that even with revenue authorities' websites, we do have hotlines and we do have ways in which you can contact the revenue authorities. But most people actually do not do that. And then when politicians are actually campaigning, I would wish for them to put more emphasis on their campaigns in terms of how the funds have been used, the previous taxes the income that was generated from taxes and how the funds were used. But then you realize that most of the times the emphasis is paid upon it's more on the campaigner and the politician.
Yes. Now, there's also the question of the place of tax in development of a nation, but also the whole question of taxes across borders. And there have been discussions on harmonizing taxation across borders. What kind of information do people need to have, and why is that important?
Okay, so first of all, I would think that in the near future, there's a chance that we'll have tax harmonized across Africa, especially with the continental free trade movement. I think for countries to avoid race to the bottom, where a country can choose to lower taxes so that they can gain a competitive advantage, I think the best thing for African countries to do is to have a harmonized tax. For example, the corporate income tax, it could be harmonized in a way that all countries probably pay 20%, which is a flat rate. Right? So I think that's the most easiest way to go about it, especially with the continental free trade movement.
And in terms of the level of development of a country, does it really matter how effective the taxation system is, or is it about the utilization of the funds that have been collected by the government?
I would say it's a mixture of both, right? If a development happens and I'm aware as a taxpayer that it's my money that has been used to construct the roads, I'll be more motivated and more excited to pay taxes. But you realize that most people, they only pay taxes because it's a civic duty, and they don't want to get on the wrong side of the law. But then if I'm aware of what my taxes and how my taxes benefit the government and the economy of the country, I'll pay my taxes with so much pride because I know it's going a long way to develop the economy.
I hope the governments out there listening to you.
I hope so.
And the citizens now can get a sense of why they pay taxes. Aimée, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really appreciate you coming over here.
Thank you.
Well, that's Aimée Dushime, who's a chartered certified accountant at KPMG in East Africa.